Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council. It is Monday, October 12th, 2020, and we are reconvening for open session. Let the record reflect that there was no reportable action taken during this evening's closed session. It is 7:03 by my watch, and I am calling this meeting to order. This evening, we'll be considering one resolution on insurance requirements for city contracts. We'll be also considering two consideration items on one, appointing a trustee representing the city to the county's Vector Control District Board. And also, we will be considering two new murals at two different locations. Finally, we're going to be considering 8 items under our consent calendar. Before we begin, please note that all public meetings will be recorded. When a participant logs in via the computer or calls in to join the meeting, their name and or phone number will be visible to all participants. Unless you are providing public comment, your audio will be muted and your video will be disabled. Persons wishing to be audience members to the meeting may do so anonymously. Anonymous participants, however, will not be recognized for public comment. Persons who seek to bypass the city's host controls will be dropped and blocked from the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation. Item number 6, roll call. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Santinez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
Here.
Councilmember Dutton.
Here.
Councilmember Hamadah.
Here.
Mayor Garza.
Here. Thank you for that, Madam City Clerk. Up next, we will be having our invocation, our Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation will be led by our Mayor Pro Tem Dan Coops, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Ray Dutton. Please stand.
Please bow with me for a word of prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening hour to give you thanks for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon our city and to us personally. Be with us as we deliberate the meeting before us. Give us the wisdom to do what is right and correct for our city. We're especially mindful of those that protect us, the firefighters and the sheriff personnel in our city. Keep them safe from harm and danger as they do their job to make us safe. With all this, we ask in His name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Dutton. Item number 9, City Council announcements. Let me start that off with the city's next special and general municipal election will be held on Tuesday, November 3, 2020. On the November 3rd ballot will be the election of a council member representing District 4, for which there are 5 qualified candidates. Also, all Bellflower voters will have an opportunity to vote on the city's ballot measure, which is Measure M. The last day to register to vote in the November election is October 19, 2020. Register to vote at www.levote.net. For more information about this election, voter registration, or which council district you reside in, please contact the city clerk's office at area code 562-804-1424 extension 2271, or you can also reach out to her via email at cclerk@bellflower.org. Mayor Pro Tem Dan Coops.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City of Bellflower invites you to participate in the Bellflower Honors Program. This program offers an opportunity to honor past and present military personnel from Bellflower by dedicating a street pole banner. Banners will go up in November and stay up for 1 year. Then they'll be given to the honorees or the family as a thank you for their service. For more information about this situation, please contact Mike Machado, 562-804-1424. You can find him at extension 2258, or Mike's email is mmachado@bellflower.org. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem Coops. Up next, Councilmember Raymond Hamadah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Bellflower. Good. The Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors and the City of Los Angeles have dedicated part of their CARES Act funding to provide child care services in the form of vouchers. And these will be for essential workers and low-income working parents during the COVID pandemic. The Child Care Alliance of Los Angeles and its partner agencies will distribute these funds to eligible essential workers. Look, eligibility requirements and more information about the Child Care Voucher Program can be found on our website at www.bellflower.org, and applications for eligible persons can be found at www.ccala.net. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Hamadah. Up next, Councilmember Ray Dutton.
Thank you, Mayor. The U.S. Census Bureau has extended the deadline to complete the 2020 census by this Saturday, by October 31st. This Saturday is not October 31st. So it's going to be on Saturday, October 31st. Under the Constitution, every person in the United States needs to be counted in the census. Completing the census can be done several ways: online, by phone, or mail. Seats in the U.S. House of Representatives are drawn every 10 years based on changes in the population. It's also used to determine how federal funds are handed out to us. A conservative estimate is about $1,000 per person per year over 10 years. So let's say I forgot to put my daughter on the form. That's $10,000 that doesn't come back to the community over that 10-year period. If you haven't submitted your questionnaire, take 10 minutes to visit www.my2020census.gov or by calling 844, that's area code 844-330-2020. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Dutton. And up next, Councilmember Sunny Santanes.
Thank you, Mayor. Our traditional in-person State of the City did not take place this year. However, a video presentation of Bellflower's annual State of the City is available for viewing. We're proud to share this modified presentation that highlights Bellflower's current state of the city, what we have accomplished in 2020, and what we are looking forward to in the future. And I've seen this video, and congratulations to our mayor for a wonderful job. You can find a video link on the city's website, and you can view the presentation prior to the airing of the City Council meetings on Spectrum Cable TV, Channel 36. Meetings air on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. and on Thursdays at 11 a.m., as well as on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Santanes. Really a special thanks to staff. They were amazing in putting that all together, so I really hope the community enjoyed that really good piece of information despite COVID. So. Still sticking with item number 9. So up next, I would like to have us recognize Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So October 2020 marks 35 years that National Breast Cancer Awareness Month has educated women about early breast cancer detecting, diagnosis, and treatment. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetime. When breast cancer is detected early and is in the localized state, the 5-year survival rate for women is 99%. The awareness campaign is remembering those who have lost their fight against breast cancer, standing with those who remember their loved ones, and continuing to support our nation's advocates. And whereas the American Cancer Society has searched endlessly for a cure through vital research and has a mammoth task of educating our community and all Americans of the risk of breast cancer, now therefore I, Juan Garza, Mayor of the City of Bellflower, do hereby proclaim October 2020 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Moving on to, again, sticking with item number 9, I would like to have us recognize National Filipino-American History Month. The Filipino-American community is the second largest Asian American group in the United States, with a population estimated at 4 million. Filipinos first reached North America in the 16th century, and the first Filipino settlements on the continent were established in 1763. We recognize the many contributions Filipinos have made as a partner of the United States, including fighting wars alongside Americans and playing a role in the American labor movement. And whereas the celebration of Filipino-American Heritage Month provides an opportunity to promote the study of Filipino-American history, culture, and their significant contributions in the areas of art, society, politics, economics, education, technology, religion, and so much more. Now therefore, I, Juan Garza, Mayor of the City of Bellflower, do hereby proclaim October 2020 as Filipino-American History Month. And last but not least, I would like for us to recognize National Work and Family Month. And I know that this is a new one for our city and for many of us in our nation, but I think considering COVID, I think it's appropriate for us to recognize this. National Work and Family Month is designed to communicate and celebrate the progress towards creating healthier and more flexible work environments. Millions of Americans continue to struggle day in and day out to balance work and family life, to juggle their job responsibilities with caring for a child, an elderly relative, or a loved one with a disability. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused many Americans to continue working from home while educating their children, as well as for those in our community who are essential workers and struggling to balance their obligations with the need for their personal and family safety. There are steps we can all take to help, implementing practices like telework, paid leave, and alternative work schedules for the flexibility to meet the dual demands of work and family life. The balance of work and family can be difficult, but are necessary and designed to create progress towards healthier and more flexible work environments. With that, now, therefore, I, Juan Garza, Mayor of the City of Bellflower, do hereby proclaim October 2020 as Work and Family Month here in Bellflower. Thank you, everyone, and thanks to staff for assisting with this. So, up next, item number 10, public comments. Mr. Stewart.
This is the time set aside for the public to address the City Council on matters not listed on the agenda. Those wishing to speak on an agenda item must utilize one of the methods listed on page 2 of the agenda. You will be given 3 minutes to address the City Council. Attempts to provide comment at times not designated on the agenda may result in the city dropping you from the meeting.
Thank you for that, Mr. Stewart. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature. If by computer, it appears under the Participants tab. If by phone app, it will appear under the More button at the bottom right-hand corner. Or if by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand. You will be called upon by the Deputy City Clerk in the order received. You can then unmute your microphone so that you can provide your comments. Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to make comments this evening under public comments?
Mayor, I'll give the public just a moment to utilize the feature.
No problem. Thank you.
Mayor Priscilla Brown would like to present public comment. Ms. Brown, if you'll give me just a moment to get the timer on the screen, and then you can begin.
Good evening, City Council members. This is obviously Priscilla Brown. 2 weeks ago at a meeting, I spoke regarding the subject of cannabis. And I just wanted to state that I misspoke regarding 4 of the council members that were not truthful in stating that they would not vote for recreational cannabis, and that was incorrect. So I wanted to correct my statement saying that Councilman Sandy Inez was the only one who did not vote for recreational. He voted against that. And I wanted to publicly apologize to him for making that incorrect statement. So Councilman Sandy Inez, I do apologize for making that incorrect statement. And I do remember you voting against the recreational cannabis. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Brown. Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have any other members of the public wishing to make comments this evening?
Mayor, I'm not seeing any other public comment at this time.
Thank you for that, Madam Deputy City Clerk, and Ms. Brown for joining us this evening. Item number 11, public hearings, we have none this evening. Item number 12, ordinances and resolutions for consideration. Again, we have 2. So let's move on to item number 12A, Mr. Stewart.
And this is consideration of possible action to adopt resolution number 20-69, a resolution establishing insurance requirements for city contracts and delegating authority for insurance determinations to the city manager or designee. And I believe that Ms. Stover and Mr. Berger have prepared this item. We'll answer any questions you have. And Randy, you can make it brief.
I didn't have anything prepared to make this evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll jump in on this one. Particularly in the past 6 months, our office has been asked more and more about insurance requirements from the city, and quite frankly, there is no bright line that was authorized by the city council with regard to insurance. And under those circumstances, asking the attorney about how much insurance is necessary for any particular service is probably met with less than enthusiasm, since we always recommend you need $10 million for everything, including whatever is being presented to us. So rather than have the city attorney say you need insurance for everything, I think it's far better for the city council to adopt a resolution which establishes general criteria for what type of insurance is needed for what types of services, and then delegate authority to the city manager to, under some circumstances, waive insurance or at least reduce the amount of insurance. And if the city attorney, for example, who's, I suppose, is in some respects the ultimate risk manager, doesn't think that that's appropriate, that can be appealed to the city council. And that way, that will help contracts flow more smoothly through certainly the city clerk's office and the city attorney's office and the city manager's office. So that's what's before you tonight. The specifics are in the staff report and in the resolution. As mentioned in both the staff report and in the recitals for the draft resolution, this is not an exact science. Insurance requirements is that you cannot provide a bright line, but you can establish general guidelines for what types of risk you're talking about and what types of general insurance is expected for particular types of contracts. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Berger, before we go any further, I think when reading this contract before, I don't think we've changed any standards that have been generally accepted in the city over the past several years. All we did is codify them in this document. Is that?
Since my appointment, certainly we've changed the insurance requirements with regard to our standard contracts. And in some instances, we've beefed them up. In some instances, the city manager has been able to waive them. Again, I prefer having the city council weigh in on this so that at least we have firm guidance from the city council in terms of what should and shouldn't be done under various circumstances.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Berger. Let's open it up to questions from my colleagues. Let's start off with Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to understand that we already have in place what is we are going to codify tonight.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the proposed resolution has an insurance matrix which establishes various categories of risk along with proposed amounts for the per occurrence insurance amounts, and also provides a delegation of authority, also establishing various risk categories and authorizing as appropriate whether or not insurance should be reduced or waived altogether for particular types of services.
But with regard to general limits, we're looking at current practices, mainly in the matrix. This is just formalizing those standards.
Okay, and the city manager would have the ultimate decision on that. And if we wanted to challenge it, it would come through the city manager, our city clerk, attorney, back
Correct.
to our council.
Yeah.
Right. Ultimately, the city council has the ultimate say on all of these contracts, obviously, and there's certainly different levels depending on whether you're talking about a fireworks display versus somebody coming onto City Hall to provide a training seminar.
This document adds muscle to our comments when we set up insurance standards and they start squawking about the standards, because almost inevitably somebody providing service in the city will be upset about the threshold of insurance coverage that we require. All this basically does is formalize that and gives us more power to enforce our opinion on that.
But these are basically standard amounts that are not exorbitant, but they're
Not exorbitant and approved by the JPIA as well.
all right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. Up next, Councilmember Raymond Hamadah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I have probably no particular questions, but I do want to commend staff on this. Definitely when our, top-notch staff, continues to evaluate such things as risk and then keep it at the forefront and keep us out of trouble, and the whole thing. Definitely, I want to applaud them. I think they're always on the move of, best practices, and, I think I can say that I trust staff, and I think it's good that we find these things and document it, and then make sure that we got meat on anything that comes up in the future. So again, I want to thank staff. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Hamadah. Up next, Councilmember Ray Dutton.
I don't see anything out of line with the cost of these insurance. I'm familiar with some of these insurance because I pay for these insurance and have this kind of liability with a small business that I own. But I have seen nothing out of line where anybody couldn't afford it. I can't believe anybody would squawk because this is general liability coverage that is well known in any business entity. This is the very minimum. So I concur with the staff on a well-done report, and that's all I got to say.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Dutton. Councilmember Sonny Santinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to echo my gratitude to staff for coming up with this, I call it streamlining of the requirements so that our vendors, our contractors, and whoever wants to do business with Bellflower, they know exactly what they're getting into. And thank you, City Manager, for checking with JPIA. That would have been my next question. Thank you for that. I just want to get some clarification on page 8 of the staff report, section 8 and section 9. On section 8C and then section 9E. So what's the distinction between the medium risk and high risk when it comes to excavation, construction, confined spaces, and overhead hazard?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll jump in on that one. It just really depends on the circumstances of what kind of excavation, what kind of confined space we're talking about. So there is a vast difference between having a high electrical line within the street in a vault versus being in a confined space in a parking structure above ground. So there are differences in risk simply because of the circumstances and the factual circumstances. It goes back to my initial observation that there is no bright line for us to make a determination every single moment exactly what type of insurance is appropriate under the circumstances. As one Supreme Court justice famously said, I'll know it when I see it. So under different circumstances.
So the city manager basically has enough leeway
Correct.
to make a judgment call between medium and high risk.
I think so, yes.
Okay, wonderful. And then just for clarification on section 8B and then section 9C, projects of more than 1/4 mile in area or square mile, or what's?
Whatever the preference of the council is, it's really.
I'm just trying to understand, but because a mile is a distance,
right,
not an area. So is
it would be a circumference or a square
or
around one
radius or something
particular
like
area.
that?
So,
Okay.
for example, if you have a fireworks display, the distribution pattern of the explosives may be much greater than 1/4 mile, for example, or it may be within that 1/4 mile, but it's an area within, for example, the detonation area. Or we can keep on going on with examples.
Okay.
But in terms of how far a particular risk will spread, so if you're talking about gas, it may be very concentrated within one particular area, or it may dissipate as you go out from that area. And the same with other types of things, if you think about it in that type of arena.
Would that be the same for medium and high? So it makes it the same for medium and high risk?
Right, exactly. So I gave the example of fireworks as opposed to, say, oxygen being used at a construction site.
Right.
I mean, those two risks are different. One has a much higher risk of being able to provide damage to private property. One is a much lower risk. But they both may be within the same types of areas, if you will.
Yeah, okay. All right, very good. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Santinez. I echo the comments from everybody up here. Just great job, and I think this is reasonable, again, considering being a small business owner and being familiar with these limits. So with that, why don't we open it up to public comments? Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to make comments or ask questions regarding this evening's item 12A?
Mayor, I'm not seeing any public comment.
Thank you for that, Madam Deputy City Clerk. So, gentlemen, any final questions or comments regarding this item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to make the motion to adopt resolution number 20-69.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So I have a motion by Councilmember Hamadah and a second by Councilmember Santa Ynez. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Santa Ynez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Coops,
Aye.
Councilmember Dutton,
Aye.
Councilmember Hamadah,
Aye.
Mayor Garza.
Aye. Thank you for that, Madam City Clerk. Item 13A, Mr. Stewart.
With consideration of possible action to appoint a trustee to represent Bellflower on the Board of Trustees of the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Councilmember Sonny Santinez.
Second the motion.
Great. So I have a motion and a second regarding this evening's item 13A. Hearing nothing further. I have a motion by Councilmember Dutton, second by Mayor Pro Tem Coops. Hearing nothing further, roll call, please.
Councilmember Santa Ynez,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Coops,
Aye.
Councilmember Dutton,
Aye.
Councilmember Hamadah,
Aye.
Mayor Garza.
Aye.
One more question, gentlemen, 2 or 4 years?
Or that was 4 years.
4 years, got
He's
it.
only in the council 2 more.
Oh.
So for the
Better be
record, for the record, it was for 4 years. So. Yes.
Okay.
Great. So let's move on to item 13B. Mr. Stewart.
This is consideration of possible action to approve 2 proposed locations, Lakewood Boulevard and 91 Freeway, Underpass and the tower behind Hambones, and the stand-up club in Town Center Plaza for murals as part of the public art program. And I believe that Mr. Delalange has a brief presentation for us.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Madam Deputy Clerk, City Clerk, or City Clerk, may I have share screen, please?
Okay.
Thank you. So we've had some recent murals, and after the success of these recent murals around Bellflower, one of them being the Underpass at Bellflower and the 91 Freeway. You guys never get to see me anymore on this Zoom, so I thought I'd throw myself in. The Nest Tambien, the recent mural there, and the one there by on Steelcraft. We thought that we would bring back, we had Mayor Garza suggested potentially doing a mural at the underpass of the 91 Freeway and Lakewood Boulevard. And staff was seeking council direction for a mural at Town Center Plaza. So let's take a look at the mural at the 91 Freeway and Lakewood Boulevard first. So there on the screen, you can see the 4 areas that could be addressed by the mural. They are all at the edge of the overpass because as you can kind of see as you go farther in and deeper in, it gets pretty dark in there. So we want these murals, if approved, to go in this location to be visible to pedestrians and motorists by having the light of day shine on them. More, you know, and they'll be more visible, similar to the ones at Bellflower Boulevard, where the logo is right at the edge, where the off-ramps can see them and hear the vehicles at the various traffic signals around the underpasses will also be able to see them. So that's the Lakewood Boulevard 91 Freeway underpass locations. And then this is the tower behind the Hambones Bar and Grill and the future stand-up club, comedy club. And we don't have we have some conceptual designs in the works for these locations, but this is the second location that we would recommend putting a mural. We anticipate this being a very active location once the comedy club opens up, because the comedy club will exit, the shows will exit into the plaza pretty much a one-way. The front of the building will be entrance only, and then the patrons after the shows will be exiting into the plaza. So this will be a high visibility area, and muralists tend to like that, and we like that to have a fun mural in the town center plaza as well. So, and for those of you that don't know, this houses the electrical panels for a couple of the buildings there, the comedy club, as well as Hambones, and it's also the access to the balcony that you can see the railing for there for the projector room when we do movies at the plaza. So with that, recommendation is for the city council to approve the proposed locations for murals located at the Lakewood Boulevard 91 Freeway Underpass and the tower at Town Center Plaza, or alternatively discuss and take other action related to this item. If approved, and going forward, we will bring back some mural designs for you to look at the next council meeting. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for that, Mr. De La Longa. You know what, I typically don't do this, but let me start off with my questions first, just because I was the one that initiated having these murals considered. And so to my colleagues, my thought process in this is, obviously we have the murals that we have under the underpass on Bellflower Boulevard. I think just in looking at opportunities for us to enhance our community in other areas, I think we're starting to invest more and more in the west side. And I think this presents an opportunity to invest even more in the west side of our city. And not only that, but I think one of the things that we can capitalize on is the fact that Lakewood Boulevard, that exit is a major exit, and that roadway is a major roadway that actually transports people to major shopping locations that are not necessarily Bellflower, but neighboring cities. And so for me, I would like to promote our offerings more that we provide here in Bellflower to those people that are coming into our city that are going towards neighboring cities, and hopefully make it a marketing piece so that people will frequent our city for those shopping needs as well. So again, I think it presents an opportunity, and at the same time beautifying, investing in our west side even more than we already are. So that's my thought process behind this, and I don't have any questions for staff. I think they've already answered in terms of the timing. I am interested. Obviously, I'm interested in seeing activity if my council colleagues come along, hopefully before my term on the council ends. It would be a huge source of pride. But that completes my comments, and with that, why don't we move on to Councilmember Raymond Hamadah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I would echo those comments. Again, I mean, when there's opportunity to bring further artwork to this town, it definitely puts a smile on my face, and gives us a chance to showcase when we can, or just dress things up. And and we are very fortunate that we have some funds to do this. So again, what's been done already in town now, it's just awesome. We can do it more. That just keeps piling it on. And the one for the Lakewood, again, as mentioned in the staff report, it looks to be something similar to what we did at Bellflower. Because I think in the past meeting we talked about vehicle traffic distractions and so on, but definitely something that's not trying to figure out what it is. It's pretty clear when you get on or go under the Bellflower overpass. You actually again it's Bellflower, and you do see some of the opportunities here. So that's something that's great. The one for the plaza, leave it for the creativity of the artist. Hopefully that's where you can be whimsical and do something that really can make people look and hopefully take a lot of pictures too. And Jim, just one question on the other mural that we were going to do again opposite the one from the Nest. That's just sort of been put on hold, and we're kind of waiting for another spot for it.
Yeah, again, we could not get in touch with the property owner of the building opposite to the Nest Tambien. They kind of went off grid, so we were unable to finalize that deal. So we kind of went looking up elsewhere, and that's a hard one to fit because that was the long Bellflower spelled out with whimsical characters similar to what was on on the Nest Tambien, but in the letters of that spelled out Bellflower. So that's a little trickier one to find a place for that's sufficiently visible. So this idea came to mind when we were walking over to Steelcraft one day for lunch and thought this was a cool thing to do. So that's still we still have that design, and if we find a location for it, we can bring that forth to you as well.
All right, thank you, Jim. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Hamadah. Up next, Councilmember Ray Dutton.
Mayor, I think that's an excellent idea you came up with, is working on that. I just got a couple of questions. I'm also for the tower. I'm for that. But on the overpass, I got a question for Jim. One, do we have the encroachment permit yet, or how long does it take? Can it be done within the time frame?
We do not have an encroachment permit as of yet. We'll have to start working on that. We wanted to make sure we got authorization to move forward before we did any of that.
Okay. Then also on, you may want to put up the photos you have, but just one of the bridges, one of the corners, one of the triangles, or whatever you have.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'm not here to, while you're getting that, I'm not here to blow up the project. I want to make things grand in the future. I get what we got done tonight too. But has anybody ever got an encroachment permit to paint over the road? To make those two murals, make that whole concrete paint, put the city emblem like in the middle. I know I kind of brought that up on Bellflower Boulevard one time. That's a much smaller type of bridge than this one. This is a long one, but I vision maybe why can't we paint from one dirt embankment to the other dirt embankment, so to speak, on every off-ramp, if we're doing that to enclose it? Have we ever researched that? Or that can be done?
So actually on the street, council member?
No, on the bridge going on, the concrete, like you see the green sign up there that says Freeway West Lane, that concrete going all the way across.
Wow, no, we've never investigated that. I can talk to Len to see if the public works director, if he's knows of anything like that, but that might be a challenge.
Yeah, it might be a challenge with the sign there. It might confuse them. But I mean, let's ask for future. We have one. That would, if we did downtown Bellflower Boulevard one day and been able to paint across that gray concrete that still has graffiti blotch out on it, go across. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It's a great recommendation that our mayor had, and I'd like to move forward with it. But if we're asking questions, if we ask and get a no, then we'll know why. That's all.
The great questions, Councilmember Dunn. Thank you for that. Up next, Councilmember Sunny Santinas.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you for coming up with that brilliant idea on the Lakewood on-ramp. Mr. De La Longa, just a couple of questions. You mentioned that, and I know it is, it gets dark underneath the bridge. Are you planning on trying to compensate for that?
No, we would actually just put the murals would be on the edge of the bridge where you can kind of see right there. They'd be 16 feet by 24 feet on the very edge where the concrete ends and then goes into the underneath. So it would just be four related murals on each of those corners.
Okay, so it's the full width of the underpass, so to speak.
Correct. It'd be significantly more expensive due to how long this particular underpass is too.
Okay. All right, good. The other question I have, just for clarification, does the city still own the tower next to Hambones? Do we still own that?
The city, I think, it still owns that because we still own the the comedy club. So we still own that property, and that will be a lease when he's complete with the improvements there.
Because I remember they have the option to buy it, right? The comedy
They do.
club?
Right, and they have not exercised that
Okay.
option, and it's a few years
All
before
right,
that
so
happens.
we don't need an encroachment permit for now.
Correct. This will be an easy one because we can just go in there and do it.
Yeah, okay, very good. All right, that's all I had, thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Sonny Santinez. Last but not least, Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I again would like to relay what I believe these are great ideas. And you humbly asked if we could try to complete these before your term is up. And because we know that we can do the encroachment on our own property, let's supervise the staff to get with it as quickly as possible to do the Ham Bones Comedy Club one. It's because the other one might take a little bit of time. And get back to us as soon as possible the possibilities that we can approve of putting on that. And then it's been an interesting year for Juan to be mayor, because he's not been able to enjoy all the festivities that ordinarily go with it because of the virus. You know, car show has been put on hold, and Bravo, you know, several things that it's fun to be a mayor of. And so I want to be able to give to you, you asked for nothing in that regard, and I want to be able to reward you a little bit with having this done before the next 60 days. And I think we have the control of this property that we can do it, or it might be a little more tedious with Caltrans. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. I completely agree. And again, that was a great point that Councilmember Dutton had noted today that I had not even considered when I came up with this. So thank you for clarifying that. So whatever staff can do, they will do, and whatever can be done, that's okay. I mean, there's the reward, I think, and I'm just going to make a personal comment here. I think the reward of serving as mayor during this time is the trust, right? So these projects are fantastic, but just having the trust of my colleagues and our residents, that's really reward enough. So I'm confident that these projects will be done if we get the permits, you know, either during my time on the council or not. But I'm just comforted by the fact that we have this vision of beautifying the west side and at the same time promoting our city as much as possible to our regional visitors. So thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem Coops. So are there any other questions or comments regarding this item?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor,
please.
just quickly, one more comment. Something that would nicely complement any new signage in the overpass area would be Caltrans doing something with the landscaping on the slopes. So let's leave it at that.
Agreed.
We
Okay.
can make the request, but no, you're
Yes. Yes.
Maybe you can paint a mural on the dirt.
Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to make comments regarding this evening's item 13B?
Mayor, I'll give the public just a moment to utilize the feature.
No problem. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm not seeing any public comment.
Thank you for that, Madam Deputy City Clerk. Any other questions, comments, gentlemen? If not, if I may, I would like to make a motion to approve the proposed locations for murals located at the Lakewood Boulevard / 91 Freeway Underpass and Town Center Plaza.
Second the motion.
Great. So I have a motion by myself and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Coops. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Santinez.
Aye?
Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
Aye.
Councilmember Dutton.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamadah.
Aye.
Mayor Garza.
Aye. Thank you for that, Madam City Clerk. Item number 14, consent calendar. Are there any items that any of my colleagues wish to pull for separate discussion or consideration this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item 14H just for additional questions.
14H, just additional question, not a problem. Any other items that anyone wish to be pulled for separate discussion or consideration?
I also would like to pull 14H
For questioning or for separate consideration?
for council discussion.
Council discussion, okay. Okay, great. Moving on to recusals and conflicts. Does anybody have any conflicts on any of this evening's closed session, consent calendar items?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me, I got all tied up with 14H.
It's okay.
I need to recuse myself of item 13B due to property interest. No, I need to, 14F. I have a property conflict within 500 feet of 9844 Artesia Boulevard.
Okay.
Excuse me, 14F.
Not a problem. All right, duly noted. On item 14F, Councilmember Dutton is conflicting himself out on that one. Any other items? All right, seeing none, let's move on to item 14H. Mr. Santinez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this item for just a couple of questions. Ms. Corpus, I asked you this morning to give us information about what's the typical cost of wood chips and Kentucky fencing for a typical plot, let's say 15,000 square feet. How much will it cost?
Sure. Councilmember Santinez and members of the City Council, good evening. So doing some rough abatement costs for a typical 15,000 square foot lot, this would include the installation of Kentucky style fencing and also mulch. This also includes staff time and equipment in order to spread the mulch across the lot. And just based on a 15,000 square foot lot, and also it being in a corner lot, I came up with a cost estimate of about $26,918. So roughly about $27,000 for an abatement of a vacant lot, which consists of fencing and wood chips or mulch.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, thank you for the staff for coming up with this recommendation. So you're recommending design concept number 1. And from what I can see here, the difference between concept number 1 and 2 is basically the plants that's going to be planted on the 5-foot setback. So my question here is, if the city does an abatement and install the wood chips and Kentucky fencing, how much time will we give the owner to really come up with a more permanent plan?
So just so I understand the question, if the city goes and abates the property, how much time are we giving the property owner to develop the property?
Oh yes, develop the property.
Well, once the city comes in and does the abatement of the lot, we would then consider that lot complied with because we used either city staff or a private contractor to have the property come into compliance with the code. So as long as the property is maintained in that manner, then they are compliant with the BMC. There is no timeline for development. Now, if you're talking about how much time they have to develop the property before the city goes out and abates it ourselves, that timeline's to be determined, but they would have to enter into some kind of agreement with the city with specified deadlines that they would have to meet in order for them to, or in order for the city to not do the abatement.
Okay, so to clarify this, so as long as the property, as long as the city, if we do the abatement, as long as we install the wood chips and the Kentucky fencing, that's considered compliant already.
That would be correct. If you adopt design concept 1 tonight, yes. The city would go in, abate the lots, and those lots would be considered conforming.
I have a problem with that because I like concept number 2, but I can understand the irrigation, the plants like that, things like that. I can understand the challenge with that, but I don't want the property to be left under concept design 1 forever and consider that as compliant. My suggestion here is we need to put some kind of time frame that yes, we will do concept number 1, But after a period of time, if the property owner hasn't developed the property, I'd like to switch to concept number 2, so that at least there is an improvement in terms of how the property is being looked at, especially in major thoroughfares like Bellflower Boulevard, Lakewood, Woodruff, Rosecrans, along there in Artesia, those kind of areas. I just don't want just wood chips and Kentucky fencing to be sufficient for a long period of time. So I want some kind of trigger that after 1 year, 2 years, whatever we decide, we will do some plans to make sure that's more presentable. If the owner doesn't do something about the development of property. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Santinez. Councilmember Dutton, I know you had some questions on.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm going along the same line, and I didn't think to ask that smart question that Sonny did to get the cost of the wood chips and the fence. But that gives me a, so if we have a non-compliant landowner that has a parcel there, they've been there for, say, 10 years. Well, heck, I can just have the city do it. He liens my property for the 27K, and I just get barks and a fence. And I didn't have to do the irrigation or the landscaping and do everything myself. I get it that probably the 27K might be more than what the property owner was going to do out of his pocket. But if we ask somebody, first off, and I think we discussed it as a body, that we really want, in the inception of this, we want a fence that's set back, we want landscaping, we want irrigation, and we want it maintained. We want the trash picked up, everything. So we ask them to do that, and they don't do it, and they end up with just a fence and bark. It seems they dodged the ball. Also, I have a question, also, maybe Elizabeth can answer this one. The vacant lots, are they under the same stormwater runoff problem that we have where vacant lots are sandbagged? There's only, those are lots that have a work in progress site.
That's a good question. I believe it's also subject to stormwater requirements. Because they're vacant lots, we also have to make sure that there's no runoff into any of the storm drains or that any harsh chemicals from the site go into the storm drains. So I believe they are still subject to the same requirements as like construction sites with the sandbags and treatments for the property.
So I'm thinking of one lot that's needs to be graded, been over 10 years. So there may be grading involved also to abate a lot. You'd grade it before you put the bark down to control the runoff. And then I'm also guessing that these lots have been around for 10 years, have already been running off into the gutters and streets with non-compliant issues also. I don't know, it just seems we're trying to go a direction to clean up these lots. It's been quite some time, and we're getting close, but I can't say we need to figure it out. And I get it. It's an enforcement problem. It's a major. Some of these lot owners, we're going to be fighting in court over it. I get that. There's a court process to do that, but I think these lots are they've been there so long. Obviously, the tax assessor hasn't taken them, so they've got to be paid for, and there's no liens on them. There's money to recover our costs, whatever we do with the property. And I would guess 75% or better of the people, once they, to put bark and Kentucky fence in at prevailing wage, can get it done a lot cheaper, and they might see the light. But I would really like to include landscaping and whatnot. And I get some of these parcels don't have a water meter. If they don't have a water meter and they can't be irrigated or whatever, that a landlord needs to apply for some kind of watering service. They have water trucks that come and water things. We as a city have a watering truck that will water some of the tree wells at certain times, so it's doable. You see construction sites with water trucks that will spray spray water 20 feet across as they go down and do dust control. So watering, I think it can be done. If we get an abatement order from a court, we need to be able to put the landscaping in and charge watering. This is what it's going to be cost per, quarter or something. But I'd really like to see us to go forward with, the barking, the Kentucky fence, and actual landscaping. That's my comment.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Dutton. Any other comments regarding item 14H from my colleagues? Councilmember Hamadah?
Well, just, again, just hearing what's been mentioned, personally, I don't mind going for the gusto and go for the full compliance, at least, I mean, for what we're being presented here. That'd be under concept number 2.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
I've got a question of the city attorney. Mr. Berger, are we able to impose the things that we're asking for currently and potentially in the future? Are we fiddling with property rights of what people have? Are we getting a place where we can go?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as I'm listening to the discussion, I'm trying to formulate my argument to the court to try to get an abatement warrant to put in the Taj Mahal on some particular piece of property. So,
well, that's my concern.
This is a fine balance. I mean, this is something that I understand that the council is struggling with. The original regulations were put into place in order to try to encourage at least an aesthetic component of these vacant properties to be brought up to snuff, so to speak. I think it would be very difficult for the city council to actually force somebody to develop their vacant lot. If somebody wants to keep their vacant lot vacant, for whatever reason it is, that's their right to do. And if the council wants to move forward to try to force them to build something on that lot, I can make a very easy counter argument if I'm the property owner that you're interfering with my property rights, which, as all of us know, is a constitutionally protected right. So we have to balance between what the council ultimately would like to do and what we can do in the interim. In the interim, it's certainly something that we can do to establish regulations requiring that these properties not be an eyesore. They should not be blighted properties, and that's what the council has already done. It's adopted the vacant lot ordinance requiring imposing minimum requirements for those vacant lots. Unfortunately, we haven't received much voluntary compliance from the vacant lot owners in terms of coming in, getting plans approved for the types of landscaping that those property owners want. So now the council's left with, well, what do we do in order to bring those properties into minimum compliance with what the municipal code establishes? That's what's really on the agenda tonight, so that we can approach this from a uniform perspective in terms of enforcement. Whether you do option 1 or option 2, that's entirely up to you. I will have to tell you that I can't answer your question, Councilmember Coops, because I haven't been in court yet to try to argue it in front of a judge, and I haven't had pushback yet from a council or from a property owner. So certainly you are correct that we are potentially interfering with the property rights of property owners. I think thus far that the city is within its rights to have an expectation that people keep their property well maintained and not an eyesore, and do not bring down the property values of their neighbors or of the city in general. But once you go beyond that gray area, where's that gray area in terms of how much is too much in terms of abating that particular nuisance? That's really what the debate is tonight. So I suppose to answer your question is, these two concepts I'm comfortable with from a legal perspective in terms of going into court and trying to convince a judge that I need an abatement warrant to go onto the property and erect these things at public cost that will be reimbursed on the backside of things. Beyond one of these two concepts, I think it becomes a dicier process. So I would encourage you to focus in on one of these two, and if as Council Member Santinez mentioned, you want to do as an initial thing concept 1, and then we come back in a year or two, and if they haven't done anything, we implement concept 2. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I mean, ultimately, our code enforcement efforts are to achieve voluntary compliance as opposed to having to bring down the hammer on every single property owner. But I think if you go beyond these two concepts, which are really the threshold concepts for purposes of enforcement, I think it becomes a grayer area, and it makes it more difficult for the city to convince somebody with black robes on whether or not we should go onto the property in order to implement this. That's a very long-winded answer to your question, but I guess I don't know until I get my first abatement warrant.
No, but I'm concerned for property rights as indicated. You know, what can we impose? We all know what our intent is, but when do we step over the line? And I agree with what Sonny brought forward, that maybe we do this in baby steps. We hope for what we can get initially with the chips and with the Kentucky fence, and put a time 36, 48 months on it, and then we'll revisit it again. But I don't know how far we can go with landscaping, plants, lights, trees, you know. Then we're getting over on a place where, you know, we need to.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I chime in, Mayor?
Sure.
Yes, please.
I would just, with that said, I would just go with, you know, it seems like the attorney can fight concept too, or argue it, not fight it, argue it to most likely in favor. But we need to come up with some kind of a standard landscaping plan. So everyone's the same, you know, the bark, if that's what we're gonna do, if we're gonna bark the whole lot or none of it, the fence and some irrigation with water. I mean, some irrigation with water. It's always irrigation with water, right? Some landscaping with irrigation, or landscaping without irrigation and a water service to water it. But to have a template, this is what we do. Could be drought tolerant plants, something like that. Just something that looks something, and have it just, you know, the easy, you know, there's plants that take less water that, you know, they're alive but they look dead.
That's called a weed.
Yeah. There's plants that thrive in those kind of conditions, and you just need to figure it out. But I just think we ought to just go with concept 2 and just get it done. That way there's no confusion.
Great. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Councilmember Dutton, then you're proposing that we go with concept 2.
Yes.
Correct. Right. Mr. Sandinez, since this is your
Yeah, I really want to. One is, I want to give time to staff to make it a uniform implementation. Concept 2 is a good idea, but I'm concerned about the lack of water supply and things like that from the get-go. So I'd rather give them a chance, the opportunity, like baby steps. Both our staff and the owner will benefit out of this if we take baby steps, because we're given the opportunity to really do something about it. Otherwise, the hammer will come down after, let's say, 2 years. At the same time, staff will have an opportunity to develop a uniform landscaping plan. We give them some time to develop. If we implement this, let's say, next month, then staff can come up with a uniform landscaping plan with plants, with trees and things like that, so that if after 24 months, the owner hasn't done anything, then we pull the trigger on concept number 2. So that will be my recommendation. Start with 1 right away, so it's easier to implement without worrying about watering, landscaping, things like that. To me, it's easier to implement because it looks very uniform. At the same time, there is that hammer that's ready to go, so that after 24 months, if nothing has happened, we pull the trigger on concept number 2. So that's my recommendation.
Got it.
I got a question for the attorney. So if we started tomorrow, which I know we can't, and you had a non-compliant property owner, how long would it take to get an abatement order? 6 months?
Well, I can tell you from the past, what is it, 7 months now, since COVID came into full swing, it has been very difficult to get into court. That said, we have been successful in getting abatement warrants under circumstances where we were able to inundate the court with evidence of the problems on a particular piece of property. Then we've been very successful when we linked it particularly to stay-at-home orders. This, however, these are...
It's not health and safety.
These are vacant lots.
Yeah.
So it is going to be a lower priority for the court, and the court is going to have a very big backlog. So just educated guess, looking at 3 or 4 months out, best case scenario, because.
To get to court.
To get to court.
And then it could take 6
Once
months
we
in
get to court, though, I think we'll be fairly successful in terms of getting the warrants to go onto the property.
No.
Because by that time, we'll have been able to demonstrate that we've already spent a year and a half trying to get voluntary compliance, the record for each one of these particular pieces of property. Then, you know, depending on the council's decision tonight, we will have an additional arrow in our quiver in terms of contacting the property owners and letting them know that we're going to be going onto the property in order to implement Design 1 or Design 2, whatever the council wants to decide, and that they have a very limited time to try to bring in their plans before we implement that. And establishing that particular record will, I think, convince most judges that, yes, we've done all of our due diligence and we have a right to do these things. And particularly, and I can make a pretty good argument that we can tie it into business recovery in terms of trying to recover from COVID-19. It is a stimulus for all the types of policies that the council has already explored, particularly this past summer. So I think 3 to 4 months, and then we should be able to be fairly successful.
Okay, with that said, and then I'm looking at 3 to 4 months then, and then time the project gets done, 6 months. Times Public Works got there to do it. I am a meeting, I would I can see where you're going, Sonny, with the 2-tiered system to put them on, but you can't wait 2 years. Some of these properties have been vacant for over 10 years. I would say, my recommendation, if we go this route, do the bark and fence, and then give them 6 months to get landscaping in. It's a defined line where the landscaping goes. You're just putting plants in and some irrigation. It should be able to do it. You know, when they get that, also they get a lien on their property for $27,000, let's say, that's going to sting in a way that they're more mad and more apt not to do anything. I'll just put another lien on it. I don't care. You know, obviously they haven't done anything with these properties.
Question to staff, Mr. Mayor. Jeff, Len, how long will it take you to develop a landscaping plan? And then number 2 is, how soon do you think the property owner can get water line installed in a particular property? Or 3, how soon can we get a watering tanker, so to speak?
Well, there's multiple questions there. So
Yeah,
the
I know, I
question,
have
as
3
soon as we
questions
get the
there.
plan done relatively quickly, getting a water tanker there probably a relatively long time since we don't have a truck now. And I don't have an answer, and Len might be able to tell us better on the irrigation.
Honorable Mayor and council members, on the plan itself, we already have a Parkway Design Guide plan that we adopted a couple of years ago. We can take a lot of those standards and dovetail it into a general vacant lot plan. I mean, from the perspective that we're just talking about the Kentucky fence, as well as the bark. The bark's super easy to get. We put a purchase order in for a request. We have it delivered in. It's no problem. The installation of a Kentucky fence, as you know, everything has to bid out for us here. Perhaps we could look at getting somebody on call with an open contract, where we've done that in the past, where we have contractors that submit a bid, and then we'll hold them in place for 2 or 3 years at a time. That way we're able to systematically farm out projects instead of bidding every single one out individually and stuff. So it saves us a little time. But to get through that whole initial phase of doing that, it would take a couple months to get a contractor on board. And in terms of the maintenance, if you're going back to the standard lot, the delivery of the wood chips and the spreading would probably take a 4-man crew a couple days to get laid out. It depends on what the ground base is as well. You know, some of these lots are completely covered in asphalt. Some are in concrete, some are dirt. So are we looking to demo out the entire slab and convert it into dirt? Or are we just going to put wood chips and then somehow magically try to landscape on top of asphalt somewhere down the line? It will depend on what vacant lot it is, but there's a lot of variables, and everyone's gonna be different. There's some that will be extremely easy, some that will sit there and drive us bonkers trying to figure out how to do it, but we'll be able to get it done one way or the other. But, I mean, to answer the question, I mean, there certainly will be time. It will take time to do this.
How about my question on irrigation?
If there's an existing meter to that site, and it's as simple as having a water company come out and connect the meter, and then we would turn it into, just run it into a backflow and an irrigation system and valves. That's not problematic. What's problematic at that point is there's now a monthly water bill. To schedule a water truck to come on out one day to drive around the city and dump water on these vacant lots. Again, I mean, it can be done. Anything can be done. We can find somebody to do that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think with that, I'm okay with 6 months. The main thing is I just want to give them the opportunity to comply
Lynn?
after they've been kind of cited already. So, thank you.
Mr. Dutton?
Didn't want you walking away and have to walk back. Some of these lots do have the concrete, whatever. Could we put in there some kind of raised beds or metal type troughs with plants in it in lieu of or something? If that's the case, is that the way to go?
Beth and I were trying to figure this out the other day, and just real quick on the cheap, what can I get my hands on? We could do something like parking stall curbs, and you just lay them end to end, and you create your 5-inch high buffer that kind of helps retain the wood chips and kind of keep everything into a confined space as opposed to spreading out onto the public right
wood
of way.
chips, yeah. I was thinking of raised beds, flower beds or something, or beds or something that's 15 inches tall with dirt in it that you can actually put a plant in.
Again, it would be the idea of having someone come out and form up a planter and pour it and do all that.
Maybe it's just better just to jackhammer concrete out if needed. And then one more question. What's the life expectancy of wood chips? Is it 5 years, 10 years?
In terms of disintegrating?
Yeah, disintegrating or being aesthetically pleasing. And not a trash magnet.
I think 5 would be a pretty good.
5 years?
Yeah, I mean, we'd probably get around. We'd have to, if it starts getting thin, you just order another truckload in and dump it and have it spread.
Where I was going with that is that part of maintenance where we can go onto the property and do that if
Again, I think that's something else that we had discussed. If there's a maintenance component to it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but I mean the abatement warrant only gives you a window of time to do something. After that, I'm not sure that we have the ability to go on.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we would have to get another abatement warrant.
Okay.
So the
Well, if that
abatement
time
warrant-
comes, we'll just do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, the abatement warrant ordinarily lasts about 14 days. We can ask for a longer one for some of the stuff, and the courts have been granting up to 30 days for long-term types of abatement projects, but in 5 years, we won't have an abatement
Got it.
warrant.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Great. Thank you for that, Councilmember Dutton. Councilmember Santinez, you're good? Okay. So if I'm hearing correctly, gentlemen, so what I heard was to move forward with design concept 1, and then after 6 months, then design concept 2 would trigger. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Just we have to get another abatement warrant to go back on the property.
Okay. Okay. So we're all good on what is being proposed. So-
And
Yes.
legal, the second abatement warrant, would the legal costs be covered?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mayor Pro Tem Coops, any questions on what's
No, I
proposed?
think we've come to a solution here.
Okay. Councilmember Hamadah?
Well, I think we're good. Again, ordinance 1375 has been around for over 18 months, so let's move on something.
Been that long?
Please. Yeah.
March of last year, yes. I am fine with it. I like, frankly, and it's gonna sound a little devious, but I see 2 sets of costs to an absent property owner that if they don't comply, then design concept 1 costs kick in, and then within 6 months, then design concept 2 costs will kick in. And I'm hoping that'll be incentive enough to have that property owner do something with the property. And if they're gonna think more long-term of developing it, then hopefully they'll ask the city to do just design cost 2 from the beginning, right? That way they don't incur the 2-time cost, but we'll leave it up to each owner. It's the property. That's what I'm foreseeing. I would also ask that staff, I know that staff is doing a good job of monitoring these property owners that are not complying, and so I'm hoping that depending on the decision that's made tonight, that we inform them of what's coming up, and hopefully that'll be an incentive enough for them to act instead of reacting after the fact, which could be really expensive. And to last point, just to confirm, is that these costs would be added on to for full recuperation from the city under the tax rolls, and not just a standard lien that rides with the property for however long the property owner owns that property, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there are 2 methods for doing the lien. One is, you've experienced this already earlier this year. It's an abatement lien process whereby it's transferred onto the property tax, and so it recovers within the year. The other is a so-called judgment lien, which, as you described, once the property transfers, that's when that would be paid off. But we try to do a belt and suspenders approach to these things.
Thank you for that, Mr. Attorney. Okay, so with that, any final questions or comments? Why don't we handle item 14H separately from the rest of the consent calendar, just for clarity? So with that, I will entertain a motion regarding 14H as proposed.
Move 14H.
Okay, so I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Coops and a second by Councilmember Dutton. Hearing nothing else, roll call, please.
Councilmember Santinas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
Aye.
Councilmember Dutton.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamadah.
Aye.
Mayor Garza.
Aye. Thank you for that, Madam City Clerk. Okay, and now let's, before us is the balance of the consent calendar, also noting the recusal from Councilmember Dutton on item 14F. With that.
So moved.
entertain a motion. Okay, a motion by
Second.
Councilmember Hamadah and a second by Councilmember Santinas. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Santinas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
Aye.
Councilmember Dutton.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamadah.
Aye.
Mayor Garza.
Aye. Thank you for that, Madam City Clerk. And moving on to item number 15. That is our council comments. So with that, let's have, I don't know where I put my notes. Let's start off with Councilmember Hamadah.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, on the first, I attended the monthly Zoom meetings for SCAG, both the Transportation Committee and the Regional Council. Probably the big thing with transportation right now is the aspirational plan that they called it for the California Transportation Plan 2050. So they're seeking public comment, and I think the period ends October 22nd. People can send in comments to ctp@dot.ca.gov. On the 3rd, I attended another Metro Zoom traffic meeting, and basically they were soliciting comments. It's the first of a number of sessions that they're just seeking comments on congestion, future congestion, and they're looking at opportunities to how to address that. And most people on the call were mentioning work on furthering bicycles and pedestrians and ride sharing and work from home and so on. So it's pretty classic comments. Between last week, between the 7th and the 9th, I attended the League of California Cities Zoom conference, and number of sessions I attended, just maybe some of I can mention. Let's see, municipal revenues, can cities and counties get along? So that's a question out there. let's see, 10 years after the Bell scandal. That was quite interesting. There was some HR sessions, the mayor's and council session, code enforcement, and some of the other things. But lastly, I just want to, let's see, thank, let's see, Assemblywoman, let's see, Christina Garcia. She has provided food and backpack donations. She started off with the YMCA. She provided 60, I believe, to the Y, and we got those going in. She'll be donating some more for the city's event. So just want to thank her for that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Hamadah. Up next, Councilmember Santinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to thank my council colleagues for reappointing me to the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District. It's a very good group. I really enjoy working with them to help eradicate mosquitoes in our district. Last Monday, I visited the farmers market. I commend and thank our staff in the Parks and Recreation Department for keeping it well maintained. It's very clean, very organized. You enter to one section, you exit to the other section, and the selection is quite impressive. So I encourage our residents to please visit the farmers market every Monday morning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Santinez. Up next, Mayor Pro Tem Coops.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thinking about the letter we received from Metro with regard to the placement of our line that will come through Bellflower and how we had lobbied to try to get it above grade, and they're telling us now that it will be at grade. Mr. Stewart, is there anything more to be discussed about that? Or have you got we talked about having to demonstrate to Metro what the traffic will be like if that occurs, or what do you think?
Yeah, we're looking at that. We have actually looked at doing a demo project to show actual traffic backup on the street, given the delays that they're talking about in their plan. And right now, Mr. Gorecki is looking into the cost and feasibility of doing that before we come back to the council. But we believe that in future years, we would probably be better off to explain the city's position, have a report on file saying this is exactly what we thought it was, so in case if it does come to pass, everybody knows we were aware of it, we just didn't get rolled. So that's what we're looking at, and I think Mr. Gorecki will have something back to the council soon.
So it's nothing that we can do to change the position of the Metro. We're simply trying to demonstrate when we get challenged on this later, we told you so. Is that?
Yeah, kind of pretty much it. I mean, it's a board decision, and what we'd like to do is get some information back to the board saying that, you know, the guidelines that you used are just not correct in doing, and we've actually obtained an independent study, and we did an additional demonstration project to show that those aren't correct, and that's all we can do. And you know, and with the hope that maybe cooler heads prevail, and they might try to go over it. Now, it will be said that they will build that thing above grade if we want to pay for it. So I think what they're telling us is they're not going to pay for building it above grade, but that's going to be a betterment that we would have to pay for if they did do so right now. So our goal is basically to convince them that it should be done and we shouldn't have to pay for it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Dutton.
I don't have anything to talk about tonight, Mayor.
Great, thank you for that, Councilmember Dutton. And I just have a couple things. One is, as was mentioned earlier, our State of the City is on our website. It's available. Sometimes I hear from our residents a note that they don't know what's going on with the city. So I highly encourage everyone to watch the State of the City. I think it's a really nice, comprehensive summary of what it is that we've accomplished here in the last year, but also not only that, but what's coming up in the future. So again, I highly encourage everyone just to watch it. It's 30 minutes. I think it's well worth it, and I thought staff did a fantastic job in putting that thing together for us. So thanks to staff for drafting that. And then lastly, I really want to commend, again, our staff with regards to COVID. I know that Councilmember Santinez mentioned the farmers market. I know for a fact that with COVID being so fluid, there are sectors that are reopening, and I know, for example, I know that our playgrounds are now allowed to be open by the county. There's a lot of, again, there's a lot of fluidity with regards to our lives with COVID and the fact that our staff works really hard to be able to digest new orders that come out. Literally, we find out about them the exact same day that they come out. And I think sometimes I would prefer that there would be better coordination between county staff and our city staff to be able to prepare for when these orders come out. The assumption, I think, from our general public is that when the county announces things, and because they're made out in public in the media, that somehow we at the local level already know about them, and that's really not the case. So I do thank our public for their patience, but I really want to commend staff with regards to adapting and being really resilient when we have these situations that change and they have to all of a sudden open things up that have been closed for months. So thank you, staff. Thanks, Jeff, for your leadership on that. That completes my comments on that. So with that, we will adjourn to the next regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, October 26, 2020. It is 8:28, and this meeting is adjourned.